Oh, absolutely. James Baek definitely, he is always prepared for these big events, and he shines through. As you can see, as we look at James Baek's accomplishments: Latin American champion in 2020, a world semifinalist in 2019 during the Ultra Series in VGC 2019, which is a really fun series to play in. Latin American finalist in 2019, and then World's Top 32 in 2016. You see a really fun group there with Metagross, the Grimmsnarl, Rotom Wash, Galarian, Moltres, Porygon 2, and Entei making an appearance here. That is exciting to see how Entei and Metagross kind of synergize together for James's team.
Yeah, and it's super interesting for me because Metagross and Entei on a team together is something that I tried to make work all the way back in 2015. So this way is going to be a little bit different, but Entei has been popping up in usage recently since it is a fairly fast Pokemon and gets access to Bulldoze, which could be helpful when you're trying to activate weakness policies on various Pokemon. So I think James has a lot of these strategies sort of built into these teams, but you know, on their own, the Grimmsnarl, the Porygon 2, the Rotom Wash, these are all Pokemon that have really earned a spot in the top tier of Pokemon in VGC. So going up against such favorites as the Gigantamax Colossal, as Dragapult, Togekiss, Rillaboom, or Shifu, it's going to come down to, you know, which Pokemon these trainers decide to bring into this game and how they're going to play it out. So I'm very excited to see this matchup, since it really feels like, you know, the new strategy that we've been seeing do well in these player cup formats versus some old hits.
Yeah, I think it's a great point that when you look at Entei compared to Colossal, the Colossal team, it's tried and true. We know at this point we're through 4 Players Cups. We understand the utility the team provides that really sets up Colossal there. Something like Entei Metagross, very similar to Entei Regirock or Entei Registeel in that case, with Clear Body as their ability. If you have Bulldoze, you lower everybody's speed by 1 stage on the field, but you have Clear Body, so that ability negates the speed drop. So not only does it activate your weakness policy, but it also makes your opposing Pokemon even slower to let the Metagross attack better. And Gabby, you know better than anybody that Dynamax Metagross is a massive threat.
It is, and it's one of my favorite Pokemon as well because of that. So hopefully we'll get to see some Dynamax Metagross action as we jump into game 1 here of James versus Marco. But even if we don't, you know, Metagross is making an appearance, and I am very, very happy about that.
Galarian, Moltres, and Rotom Wash are the lead for James Baek on the top of your screen. And on the bottom, a Dragapult and Urshifu Rapid Strike for Marco Martinez. This is losers round 3. The loser will go home, and the winner will still have that chance of qualifying for Global Finals.
A great lead from James here. The Rotom Wash and the Moltres together are going to ensure this Dragapult and Urshifu aren't going to get too much done this turn. I think Marco is in a position where he has to Dynamax that Dragapult to get that extra bulk needed to be able to take those hits from the Galarian Moltres, as those Fiery Wraths or Max Darknesses will be super effective. Rotom free to go for Thunderbolt, free to try and get maybe a nasty plot in to boost its special attack up a couple of stages. James has the opportunity to pick how he wants to approach this game, and Marco, unfortunately, is in a position where all he can do is respond to it.
No switches from either James or Marco here in game 1 or turn 1 of game 1, as Marco will decide Dynamax Dragapult is his best option. We've seen Marco in multiple matches now throughout this weekend that he has decided that Dragapult's the best Dynamax dancer. Even though he has a Colossal on his team, the Dragapult's really the leader on Marco's end so far, at least in the matches we have seen. James will go for a Dynamax out of Galarian Moltres, a very strong Pokemon. Wouldn't be able to Nasty Plot, obviously, since it's Dynamaxing, you can really only go for the attacks here. So this is going to have to go for a probably Max Darkness into the Dragapult. The Max Phantasm from Dragapult does not do a lot of damage as it is resisted, but more importantly, does get defense drops onto both of James's Pokemon. Close combat from Urshifu into Rotom, even with the defense drop, is not enough. With a sliver of HP, Rotom endures and will eat its berry. going to recover up even more thanks to the Citrus Berry, which is kind of a throwback to previous eras of VGC going for Citrus Berry. Max Airstream from Galarian Moltres brings Urshifu down to its Focus Sash. 1 HP, will be able to stick around for another turn, but crucially, now you would expect Galarian Moltres is probably faster than Dragapult next turn.
I would assume so, unless this Galarian Moltres is on the bulkier side of things, Joe.
That is tough. We don't know, it depends. Obviously, the players have this information, and you might have to account for it. You would assume with James being such a prolific player within the community, he at least knows for sure. Maybe Marco doesn't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't know if Moltres is bulky or if it's fast. Maybe you can make some calculations based off of how much Max Phantasm did. But importantly, Urshifu was knocked out thanks to Rotom targeting it down with Thunderbolt, forcing Marco to switch in the Togekiss, which does have Follow Me access, right? So Galarian Moltres is not safe to go for a Max Darkness here.
It is not safe, but I think you might go for the Max Airstream regardless, just so that you can ensure, had Moltres been slower this turn, you definitely will be faster the next turn. But it looks like James knows exactly how these Pokemon are trained, as he should, all things considered.
The Max Darkness did go first, so that is an information reveal. So Marco now understands all it takes is one Airstream boost to make Moltres faster. Max Wormwind is a neutral attack that, remember, it was -1 defense on the Moltres there. So Dragapult is finally able to take down Galarian Moltres. A bit of a missed opportunity out of James with that resisted Max Darkness into Togekiss instead of the potential Max Airstream to do even more damage. Not like it matters though, because the special defense drop lets Rotom take it out there. So that's 2 KOs for Rotom in 2 turns.
2 KOs for Rotom in 2 turns, but Rotom is going to struggle, I think, to find another, given how much damage it has taken. Great information, knowing that James did bring the Metagross to this match. Marco down to his last Pokemon. It's going to be that Incineroar. So on paper, Marco does have the tools he needs in order to score the knockouts on Metagross, to score the knockouts on Rotom, and then proceed through this game. I think if you are in Marco's shoes, you have to prioritize the knockout on the Rotom, because a Hydro Pump into your Incineroar brings you down to your last Pokemon, and then you just assume that whatever James has in the back would be enough to handle that Dragapult, which, has done a great job with Dynamax so far, but Dynamax is going to end this turn.
Fake out into the Metagross slot, but both Metagross and Rotom wash, protecting this turn. So this will be a quarter of the damage. Is still enough to take it out though, because of the previous Max Phantasm drop that occurred on turn 1. So Rotom kind of did its job though. It got 2 knockouts. It was able to bait away that attack, because obviously Metagross doesn't want to take a Max Phantasm from Dragapult. Now the Dynamax is over. Marco has his Incineroar and his Dragapult. James with the Entei and Metagross, and it might be time to bulldoze the field.
It might be time, but Dragapult also has access to Clear Body, and Bulldoze would just be doing damage to the Metagross. I think you have to play it a bit safer and hope that your opponent maybe gets a little bit greedy, goes for the Max, I guess it's no longer Max, goes for the Phantom Force into the Metagross, or a Flare Blitz to try and just knock it out. Let that activate your weakness policy so that when you do attack, after you've been hit, you do get that boost. Entei is also a interesting support option here, because it does have access to Sacred Fire, which does have a chance of burning if it were able to connect with the Dragapult, which is not going to happen this turn.
Dragapult leaving the field this turn because of Phantom Force. It is a 2-turn attack, so going to be untargetable here on this spot. The Bulldoze gets eaten up by Incineroar Shuka Berry, so it does not do too much damage there, even though it was super effective. It will, however, activate Incineroar's weakness policy. Critical hit on Incineroar, so that actually is pretty nice for James and his Entei in that spot. +2 Stomping Tantrum into Incineroar will be enough to take it out, and a beautifully played turn from James, understanding Marco's best move was the Phantom Force. I'm just going to completely ignore the Dragapult and target down the Incineroar instead.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Metagross cannot protect in front of the Dragapult as Phantom Force will just smash through it. But Entei is free to go for that Sacred Fire, try and get a burn so Dragapult won't be able to deal as much damage the following turn. And then it has Snarl, which will do super effective damage against the Dragapult to find a knockout. Or maybe you just stick with Sacred Fire. That actually did a surprising amount of damage despite being resisted.
Yep, the Sacred Fire, when it connects, which is the first hurdle, which I always understand. You gotta connect on Sacred Fire. Then you have the chance of burning, which is exactly what James got there. So this is a very strong position for him. Entei is at full HP. Dragapult's a physical attacker, so you don't really, break through unless you have a critical hit. I'm not even sure a critical hit would knock it out at this point, because depending on how Entei is trained, you can get very bulky since your main job is to be, supportive and not do damage as much. Let's find out though. These are burned Dragon Darts though, so you can kind of, essentially you can kind of double it to see how much it would have done. It did critical hit actually, so it was actually as good of an option for Dragapult as it could have been. Playing with fire here with Sacred Fire, it does connect, and it does take down Dragapult. That could have been scary if Sacred Fire missed. Maybe Marco gets another crit or something like that. But congratulations to James Baek on winning game 1 there. Something that we see often is when you have your weakness policy Pokemon, especially in VGC, you want to lead it. So very often you could see Entei Metagross as a lead. Instead, James opting to bring them in the back as a late game win condition, and that is what wins him the game.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think a lot of people are accustomed to seeing Entei and Metagross led side by side when you're playing in a best of 1 situation, such as when you're playing on the Battle Stadium ladder. In a best of 3 match, I think you have a little more flexibility to, save your strategies that people would expect till later on in the game. It's going back to that whole you defeat your opponent's counters to the thing you want to run and then you send it out and it does well. So the Entei was able to support the Metagross exactly when it's needed, and I didn't realize how powerful that Entei was too. We talked a lot about that burn mattering, and certainly it helped Entei take less damage, but Sacred Fire looked like it was a 2-hit knockout after all that Life Orb damage recoil regardless, and that's something for both Marco and James to keep in mind as we move into game 2.
Yep, that's a good point to know that maybe this Entei does have a little more offensive prowess behind it. Of course, it's a very strong Pokemon naturally. It is a relatively fast Pokemon as well, so that's one of the benefits out of this format. Like, if you did get the Entei next to the Galarian Moltres, having those max Airstream boosts, it's a really fast Pokemon that is typically faster than most of the threats in the format, and you can take advantage of it with either a fast Bulldoze or a fast Snarl or something like that. So I do think, James's strategy worked out really well for him in game 1, and the onus is on Marco to make the adjustment here.
Oh, definitely. And Marco does have a few options available to him if he wants to adjust. I think you stick with that Dragapult as your Dynamax Pokemon since it wasn't as afraid of that. It is fine to sit in front of that Pokemon and, play around for a couple turns. Having access to Follow Me from the Togekiss certainly helps as well. But I think you have to sort of rely on the Dragapult and the Togekiss as partners immediately so that you can play some mind games of your own. Maybe go for a Dazzling Gleam to deal big damage, maybe redirect the next turn. Those are the things that Marco is going to have to think about as we jump into this game 2.
Well, let's get ready for game 2 between Marco Martinez and James Baek here in losers round 3. Galarian Moltres and Rotom Wash is the same lead. They've switched starting positions, but I'll count it as the same lead for James. And Colossal Urshifu is the option. That is the adjustment out of Marco in game 2. This is a bigger offensive output because there's no fake out to stop you, right? What you can do right now is you can Aqua Jet, activate that Steam Engine, give yourself the weakness policy, and then start putting in work with Colossal. Give yourself the weakness policy, and then start putting in work with Colossal.
So no fake out, no redirection. What you do have is a Rotom that unfortunately will have access to Hydro Pump, but as we all know as VGC players, Hydro Pump is not the most accurate move out there. So Marco certainly has to go on the offensive immediately. I think you target down that Rotom from turn 1, regardless of how you do it. Is it the G-Max Volcalith? Is it something with the Urshifu? Get that damage, remove the Rotom from the field, and then worry about the Moltres, because yes, it's going to be doing some damage here, especially since we're seeing it Dynamax once again at the start of this game, but the Rotom is certainly way more scarier when you're looking at this from Colossal's perspective.
Galarian Moltres is the Dynamax option for James in Game 1. Of course, Marco, we see a Colossal on the field. We know how this goes. The Colossal is the Gigantamax version, and that will be Marco's decision on turn 1. You would expect Urshifu Rapid Strike to go for Aqua Jet. It's really great synergy, and it's one of the cool things with dynamic speed mechanics in Pokemon Sword and Shield, that because of the steam engine, he would get that speed boost right away. Not going to happen this turn, though, Gabby, as he went for Max Guard on Colossal. Coast Combat from Rotom, or excuse me, from Urshifu into Rotom will bring it down to under half its HP and activate the Citrus Berry.
I like the targeting of Rotom there. This ensures Rotom will be knocked out next turn.
Max Airstream will bring Urshifu down to 1 HP there, so it's going to bring down to its focus sash just like we saw in Game 1. That will give the speed boost to both Moltres and Rotom Wash, but once the Colossal gets a chance to get that steam engine activated, he's not going to care about those speed boosts. Maybe if he can get 2 or 3 max airstream boosts, then we got a game going on, but just from the 1 speed boost, you would think Urshifu's Aqua Jet is pretty safe here.
I think it's pretty safe, if only because Aqua Jet has a higher priority tier as well. So that Urshifu is guaranteed to connect that Aqua Jet with the Colossal this turn. And this strategy of going for the Gigantamax but using Max Guard on turn 1 is something that these Colossal players like to do when they feel like the Colossal is otherwise threatened. Now Marco can target that Rotom safely, get that knockout, and as long as Colossal is bulky enough to take an attack from the Galarian Moltres, really start going on a rampage.
Weakness policy activated as the Aqua Jet connects onto Colossal. G-Max Volcalith will be the target towards Rotom Wash, knocking it out. It will also set up the residual damage for the next couple of turns surrounding the field with those rocks. That's one of the better G-Max effects that we have in the game. And a Max Darkness from Moltres is not enough to take down Colossal here. One thing I want to note on Gabby, going back to that Max Guard, what was also really nice out of Marco, the decision to Max Guard that turn, not only did it keep Colossal safe, but it let him decide, okay, is James Dynamaxing Moltres or is he Dynamaxing Rotom? Because there was a world Rotom Wash Dynamaxes and goes for Max Geyser to hit into the Colossal as well, right? So, just trying to piggybacking off of that, I still really like how that Max Guard worked out. Now you have your third and final turn of Dynamax and you have your Steam Engine activated and you can go for another G-Max Volcalith, which is super effective onto either of James's Pokemon.
Yeah, and even though Marco looks like he's contemplating switching out this Colossal here, I think what Marco is actually doing is just reminding himself of the Pokemon that he brought into this game and trying to figure out how to position those Pokemon so that when they do take the field, they will be at an advantage. You do not switch out the Colossal necessarily in this position because you're only going to get one more attack in anyways. You might as well make that attack a Gigantamax powered attack, take the knockout, and then get the Urshifu in later to maybe Aqua Jet clean up some damage otherwise.
Dragapult will switch into Urshifu's slot on the field there. Max Guard from James, so if the G-Max Volcalith went towards it, it does! No damage on the third and final turn of Dynamax. There will be a Bulldoze, however, from Entei that is 4 times super effective into Colossal, but because of the extra HP you get while your Dynamax, Colossal is just barely able to hang on there. That was a clutch survive from Colossal.
And Colossal gets an opportunity to get one last attack in, which is pretty great considering that this Colossal in particular has Earth Power or Heat Wave. Also Meteor Beam, but I don't think there's enough time to charge that up, unfortunately. An Earth Power into the Entei here would certainly deal a ton of damage and get Marco closer to that game 3 he needs to keep his tournament life alive. The Dragapult, we saw that the Sacred Fire is going to be about a 2-hit knockout, whereas the Phantom Force onto the Entei, assuming it's not burned, is going to do a nice chunk of damage. So you have to double into that Entei, get it off the field as soon as you can, and then ensure that Metagross, if it's in the back, doesn't get that weakness policy as easily.
Oh, Extreme Speed from Entei, a common move that it carries because you get things down very low and then you can knock it out. But the Fiery Wrath from Galarian Moltres just cleanly knocks out Dragapult there. And that is a huge turn out of Life Orb Moltres for James. Will be brought down to half of its HP, and Entei takes a little bit too. But you see Colossal is at 10 HP. Extreme Speed, you'd probably assume, knocks out Colossal, right? So I don't know when Colossal's getting another attack off.
It's funny, personally, I think I was so hyped to see Metagross take the field again that I completely forgot Galarian Moltres was on the field as well. Yeah, I was like, okay,
here's how you get the... if you forget, because it does some damage.
Yeah, here's how you get the Metagross to win this for you, because that's like the style points. But I think what James is going for, as he should, is the win, which is equal amount of style points. Also, it keeps you in the tournament, which is very important. So flinching that Moltres will certainly give Metagross the opportunity to make an appearance, as I would personally love. But I think the Moltres and this Entei are going to be able to score that last knockout for James, regardless of my hopes and dreams.
Well, the Extreme Speed does take down Colossal. You would think Fake Out would... the Fake Out went towards the Galarian Moltres instead of the Entei slot there, so it stopped the potential spread attack from Moltres and the chance of flinching, but it let Entei attack freely with its, double priority move in Extreme Speed. That's even faster priority than Aqua Jet or Karate Glide or anything like that. So curious Fake Out towards the Moltres instead of Entei.
I'm glad that you called out the fact that the Extreme Speed is going to be faster than Aqua Jet, because that is really important this turn. Entei, Aqua Jet into the Urshifu, ensure that you don't get hit by Surging Strikes or any shenanigans. Moltres, go for damage here. You could go for an Air Slash onto that Rillaboom, could go for Fiery Wrath. I think the goal here, though, is just to connect some attack. And then it's down to just that Rillaboom versus your 3, possibly 2 Pokemon. So James is doing a great job of keeping that win condition in sight.
Urshifu will protect, so the Extreme Speed does not knock it out here. Air Slash into Rillaboom, takes it out! I think maybe Rillaboom was expecting to take that hit from the Life Orb Moltres, but who knows, maybe that additional 30% from Life Orb was the difference to take out Rillaboom, and now it is 1 HP on Urshifu. Well, a little bit more thanks to the grassy terrain recovery, but still not a significant enough amount of HP to stop this Entei and Metagross, which are the backbone of James's team. And James is going to move on here in the losers bracket.
Thank you, James, for sending Metagross out on the field. It really means a lot. See, now everybody's happy. James moves on to the next round of the losers bracket. Metagross